Thank you so much, and a huge thank you to ICAO for this opportunity to have a chat to you this afternoon. I'm going to touch on a number of things that have already been addressed this morning and hopefully add a little bit of practical element to what we've heard about identity. SITA is a huge fan of passenger data, of identity management. We've been helping airlines be compliant with government regulations for decades. And we've tried to innovate and tried to help the industry move forward in order to deliver everybody's aims, that collaborative approach, a more secure, a safer environment that's actually more pleasurable for us as well. So I'm going to sort of address a couple of things today. I was listening to Garth in the last session as well. He's covered some of my speech already, so I'll have to adapt on the fly. And the first thing I'm going to present, I've already seen 2 or 3 of today, a pyramid. And this pyramid is based on conversations we've had over the last 5 or 6 years, really, with some of our 70-plus government customers of what is the border of the future. And really what it comes down to is a digital border. And what does that mean? Right. The reality is the digital border is about what we've been trying to achieve. It's pre-clearance, a digital clearance of people, importantly, before they get into your immigration hall. None of us want the queues. None of us want that responsibility put onto our officers of having to make decisions in 90 seconds, 2 minutes, when you could have had hours to review the data. And that digital pre-clearance is what's going to drive that digital border, that seamless experience. To support that, we've got the exciting new world of AI and machine learning. How can that help identify these rogue actors, these tiny percentage of people that represent harm or risk to our borders? AI and machine learning can help officers do that. At SITA, we're a great believer that machines do not make decisions, but they should enable skilled operatives, analysts, and officers to make those decisions easier, faster, and cheaper. Now, this can only be made possible with traveller data, and some of the conversations we've been having out at our booth out there, please come to the booth. Traveller data quality is a huge issue, remains a huge issue. Self-entered information is prone to errors, is prone to what I call the fat finger issue of typing the wrong digits, or particularly with our American colleagues, transposing dates of days and months around. Even something as simple and innocuous and innocent as me putting in my data as Andy Smith, rather than Andrew Smith, my formal name, my passport name, can lead to challenges at the border, can lead to fines and threats and repatriation. This is a problem for the industry, so we need good quality data. And we've been working on ways to do that by reviewing and checking and assessing. But where I think we've got a really exciting prospect now is digital identities, is a trusted source of verifiable information that has authenticity, a chain of evidence that can help us deliver these digitally pre-cleared borders. So, why do we want digital identities and why do we need to pre-clear people rather than dealing with in immigration halls? We've touched on some of these already, and you'll hear more from my colleague tomorrow as well about the increasing passenger numbers and how travellers want to share information. They want to share information in return for something, though. They want a better experience. They will share more if they can have a better experience crossing the border. Again, something Garth touched on and something I'll talk about later as well. People don't want to spend time in immigration halls. More importantly, they're not spending money when they're in immigration halls. They're annoyed, they're upset, they're on Twitter, X, complaining. That's not the welcoming experience any of us want, particularly for destinations where tourism is a high percentage of GDP. We want people through the airport having had a beautiful experience and start spending money. That raises it. Now, I'm delighted that actually Jamaica is one of the nations we're working with. They improved the process so much there using advanced information and checking the data. People were having selfies at the immigration gates because it was such a lovely experience. Isn't that a bit of a change? Immigration halls being a nice experience. And I also suggest to airport authorities that you might be working with, they spend billions on making the outbound experience a delight. These people are leaving your country. Why don't you make it a delightful experience for when the people arrive? Spend more money in the immigration halls, but also get them through quickly. So travellers want to do this. One of the stats that we actually don't mention yesterday, 60-odd% of them also happy to pay for these services. So these digital identity programs, these pre-clearance programs, can be self-funding. And they can actually generate money for your chancellery and for your exchequers, your treasuries. This is actually a published report in Australia, who I'll come on to as well. The program there, 30 years ago nearly it's been running, $20. That price hasn't changed in 30 years. Tell me something else that hasn't changed its price in 30 years. And it's a self-funding program. So lots of excitement in this space. But something that's come up all too often, I'm sorry, governments don't trust data. They don't trust travellers. Even all these fantastic identity programs, the best passports on the planet, the most secure data, when it's sent across, governments don't trust it because there's no binding with this biological unit, a human being. It's just blank data. And actually one of the principal roles of immigration officers is to match that data that's been washed and scrubbed and possibly been approved with a biological unit. Are you the same person that this data is about? Do I trust that it's you? And do I believe in the intent that you want to cross the border for? Now, how do we move that away from the border? How do we move that gut feel, that assurance of identity binding to a biological unit away from the actual border itself? The answer quite simply is through the biometrics, of course. Creating a strong, secure binding. Now, it's a continuum, however. This isn't just one solution, and it never will be. I'm sorry, and anybody who says that they have one solution to fix a border is quite frankly lying. We need multiple solutions, a multiple borders strategy it's sometimes called. That ability to start understanding who is intending to come to your country and what they're intending to do as early as possible. So it starts right there over the right-hand side with travel authorizations, declarations, ETAs, e-visas. Any of those programs are the ability to start making decisions about a traveller well in advance, years and months in advance. The problem is you need to bind it with when they're actually going to arrive and the digital aspects of it as well. We're very proud of our advanced passenger processing. That's that interactive capability of denying boarding when somebody wants to check in. It's also another way of checking the data value. One of our customers has a 7-to-1 return ratio. So for they reject 7 people at check-in using our solution for every 1 that they reject at immigration primary control points. Imagine that if those 7 people weren't denied boarding in the first place and they arrive in the primary line, how many more officers you need? How many more primary lines? How many officers are avoiding being taken off primary line, which means you can't service the legitimate travellers? So that is the effect of removing the challenge of rejecting people at the primary line. I mentioned Australia, and the financial case justifies itself. Before our solution of ETA and APP, fines and repatriation costs ran at $23 million a year. Afterwards, $3 million. That's a saving of $20 million to the industry, a saving to the exchequer, a saving of disruption to the travellers. Australia is a very long way, and it's a very long way to come back as well. But all these solutions need to come together in an integrated. You need that flow, that chain of ability to understand where the data has come from, is it trustworthy? And if you have that identity anchor, that identity binding at the start, and a chain of trust along the way, you can make better decisions, better informed decisions, and keep those people away that you don't want to be in the country. You can positively put friction in place, because some people need friction. But for the vast majority, you can have a much better experience. Now, I mentioned that sort of sharing as well. This does go beyond the border. Journeys do not start and end at an airport. They start at home, on the decision to travel. When your boss tells you you've got to travel somewhere, that's when they start making the decision, understanding the travel authorization rules. It goes way beyond. But also, it doesn't stop in the immigration hall. I want to get to the hotel. I want to have my rum cocktail. I want to start enjoying the experience of being on holiday. And there's all sorts of friction points beyond that as well. So what SITA has done, and we're very proud of the collaboration we've had with our partners and the government of Aruba helping us develop this as well, but we've created this open for all digital travel ecosystem. So this is a distributed ledger technology, and that's most of the technology I'm going to talk about when I'm up here, but it's that ability for us to securely share verifiable credentials between one stakeholder and another, between holder and verifier and issuer, and create that chain. Now, suppliers, industry partners, they tend to sort of be very guarded of their approaches, and they don't like to work with competitors, and I'm not like that. I love talking to our competitors and our industry partners. And you might have noticed last week we announced a press release, perhaps one of our biggest competitors, IDEMIA, in the room today. We're working together on this ecosystem. The idea being that an IDEMIA identity token can be verified at a SITA biometric verification point, and vice versa. And that creates an open, interoperable ecosystem that will drive adoption of digital travel. Because as I show, travelers want this. The benefits to the carrier community in terms of removing fines and distribution costs and fines for inadmissible travelers are enormous. The benefits to governments in terms of operational efficiency, of not having bad actors in your ecosystem, preventing people from traveling in the first place, are incalculable. And we welcome, and please come and talk to us if you are a competitor who wants to talk about joining the ecosystem and sharing this democratization of digital identity, because it is coming. We're at type 1 at the moment. Type 2 is, I'm sure, being discussed, and I'm looking for the relevant people, but it is coming and travelers will want it. Digital identity is not new. It's been around for decades. What's new is the standards and the acceptance of it. And we will see more governments accepting digital travel credentials for border crossing. And we'll see lesser verifiable credentials, lesser identity assured identities being shared for different use cases. It is not one size fits all. Hotels are very interested in this approach. Again, they have a problem with check-in. 80 countries require a photocopy of a passport. Now, two things wrong with that. Why? I've seen people wander off into back rooms with my passport. That makes me uncomfortable as a traveller. What are they doing with that? Is my identity being stolen? But why necessary? We can take a copy of that data page, send it electronically in advance, and they can send me a digital key to my wallet. And if I choose to, I can waltz straight through the hotel reception to my room. And a lot of this is going to be about choice. Stakeholders can decide which parts of the process they want to biometrically enable and which parts that they want that friction. They want an element of checks and balance. There are numerous carriers that like to have that final boarding check, just to make sure you're not trying to carry too much luggage on board you haven't paid for. And again, positive friction, it can be a good thing, but you pick and choose. And that's too often the case in discussions like this, that people think digital travel is a throwing open of the border. It's not. It's a digitization of the passport that enables that pre-clearance to take, because it's secure, trusted, verifiable data based on the strengths that we've all been discussing around EMRTD documents, the 9303 standards. And if you can trust that the mechanism where it's shared, you can deliver benefits. I've got a minute left, so I'm going to rattle through some of these. The experience is based on proven technology. Technology is not the problem. We've processed actually 4.7 million passengers in Australia. We know the challenges of capturing that data efficiently and securely. Different passports, different nationalities, all have their mixes, and different phones have NFC readers in different places. We're working on a bit of machine learning, artificial intelligence, that when it detects what the passport is, it gives you specific instructions. US passport, open the page, because it's foiled. And of course, Aruba, the world's first international crossing with a digital travel credential. And they can cross the border in 8 seconds. Actually, it was more like 4 to 6, but we need to be conservative. 8 seconds to cross a border. How long does it take to cross your borders? Digital travel credential enabled that. So, in 7 seconds, this is coming. We're delighted to be part of the journey. Please come and talk to us. You can play with Spot as well, that I'm sure many of you have seen, the robot dog, and we're delighted to take these conversations to the wider world. Thank you so much.